Shivaya.
Okay, so let us start off straight away. We'll chant together. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharyamanthan Asmadacharya Paryantam Guru Paramparam Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavatu Mavishwavahai Om Shanti Shanti Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Tat Sat.
Om Tat Sat.
Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya.
So we will continue with where we left off. Today we are on the 28th verse. So we'll chant. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
Shri
Bhagavan
Avyaktaadhini Bhutani
Avyaktaadhini
Bhutani Vyaktamadhyani Bharata
Vyaktamadhyani Bharata
Avyaktanidhananyeva Tatra ka paridevana Okay, so as usual we look at the grammar first. So avyakta adini, that is the breakup. Avyakta adini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyakta nidhanani eva avyakta nidhanani eva tatra ka paridevana. So the Anvaya will be Hey Bharat, Hey Bharata, Bhutani Avyakta Adini, comma. Then you have to supply Bhutani again. Bhutani Vyakta Madhyani, comma. Bhutani Avyakta Nidhanani eva tatra ka paridevana. So, Hey Bharata, Bhutani, all beings are Avyakta Adi. In the beginning, all beings are unmanifest, are invisible. Then, Madhyani Bhutani Vyaktaha. In the middle, all beings can be seen, they are manifest. Nidhanani, after destruction, Avyakta eva, Bhutani Avyakta eva. They are again unmanifest after destruction. Therefore, hey Arjuna, Tatra ka paridevana, hey Bharata. Paridevana is something which you want to grieve about. What is there to grieve about, hey Bharata? So, very, very important verse. What is Krishna explaining? He is talking about the concept of birth and death. Normally, birth is something which we are all happy with. Some child is born, we are very happy. And death is something which we are all afraid of. Nobody wants to die. So this is the usual understanding. Krishna is saying from the Vedantic point of view, you have to understand properly. Because only if you understand properly will the fear go away. So what is the gist of this verse? Body is made up of Prakriti, which is what? Maya, nature. And Einstein said E is equal to mc squared. What does that mean? Anybody knows?
Matter is neither created nor destroyed.
Matter cannot be created or destroyed. Vedanta also says the same thing. Matter can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only change forms. And therefore, creation of matter is impossible is one very fundamental concept of Vedanta, which means not even the all-powerful, omnipotent Ishvara, he does not, indeed, he cannot create anything. He cannot create even 1 milligram of matter. Where is the question then of Janma and Maranam? Because we think of Maranam as destruction of matter. But Vedanta says no. And therefore the Tatparyam of this verse, the essential idea, Tatparyam, conveyed by this verse is that matter can never be created or destroyed. It only changes forms. So if you replace the word matter with your body, shariram or deham, then it becomes more understandable. Krishna is saying that your body cannot be created or destroyed. All that happens is that your body changes forms. And there are 2 types of changes he is talking about. Avyaktam. The body is sometimes in avyakta avastha, unmanifest, invisible form. And sometimes it is in vyakta avastha, visible form. When it becomes visible from invisible, when the avyakta avastha changes to vyakta avastha, we say birth has taken place, janma has happened. And from when vyakta avastha, it goes into avyakta avastha, from the manifest form, the body changes into the unmanifest form. We say death has occurred. One example we can give, a daily example from your kitchen. When you boil water and the water gets converted into steam, we call it, from the point of view of the water, it is destruction. But from the point of view of the steam, it is creation. So everything is only changing from manifest to unmanifest. Water is vyakta avastha, steam is avyakta avastha. And when steam condenses back into water, from avyakta avastha, it is coming back into vyakta avastha. Nothing has been destroyed. Nothing has been created. So in today's manifest world, Jagat is manifest today. It is vyakta avastha. All our bodies are manifest, which is why we are sitting here and listening to class, right? Today's world, our shariram is all vyakta avastha. Before we were born, it was avyakta avastha. Therefore, Krishna says, Bhutani avyakta adini. All the physical bodies, they have existed before they were born also. Even before the creation came, even before the Srishti began, these bodies have existed. Pralaya Kale, before the Big Bang, to put it in scientific language. All our bodies existed, but in potential form. That potential form is called Avyakta Maya. And a better understanding of Avyakta Maya is, if you look at the existing form of your body, it can be defined as what? Nama plus Rupa. Form and name. So existing, there is a form and there is a name which I have given the body. So you have Rajesh or your Rupa, whatever. It is a form which is existing. But what was the form before this body was born? That form was existing in potential form. Potential Nama Rupa. That potential Nama Rupa is called Prakriti, also called Avyakta Maya. So these concepts are very important. One must remember. So Prakriti, Avyakta Maya, potential Nama Rupa. Also Avyaktam is another name. Shakti is another name. In English, Divine Mother is another name. Uma is another name. All these are basically not people. These are not, when you remember that all this is the potential form of the body today. Similarly, if you expand that, it becomes the potential form of the universe today. That is what existed after Pralayam and before Srishti. That unmanifest existence is called Avyakta Maya, or as we call it, Avyaktam is a word which is used. So all this unmanifest matter, they will finally convert into visible condition, into Vyakta condition, when the universe is born, when the body is born. Therefore Krishna says, Madhyani Vyaktaha. So in the beginning, it was unmanifest, Avyaktam. Then it is born, and maybe for 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years, it is visible. So Vyakta Madhyani. In the middle, it is visible for a few years. But afterwards, Nidhanani Eva. These bodies will again go back to invisible, unmanifest condition. Nidhanani Eva Avyaktaha. So this conversion from Avyaktam to Vyaktam is what we call Janma. Conversion from Vyaktam to Avyaktam is what we call Maranam. Examine carefully, you will see that you are using two words, but the object is the same. The body is the same. The world is the same. What has changed? Only the condition has changed. It was Vyaktam once. Now it is Avyaktam. It was Avyaktam once. Now it is Vyaktam. So there are two Avyaktams. And in the middle, there is a brief Vyaktam. So in between two big unknowns, there is a temporary, brief, known existence, which we call life. And therefore Krishna says, hey Arjuna, it is not that this is new. It is not that something new has happened. You have been unmanifest all the time. You will continue to be unmanifest after some time. Right now you are manifest. But you should understand that sooner or later, you will again be unmanifest. And that process cannot be altered at all. What is unmanifest will definitely become manifest. What is manifest will definitely become unmanifest. And therefore, tatra ka paridevana. What is the use of worrying? You cannot change that. So don't change. If you cannot change, what is the point of worrying? It's an unnecessary expense of energy. Whatever is there with you in this manifest form, make use of that. Right? So, what is to be understood from here? People think, and very often people think that attachment is necessary to be a good human being. You need to say that, somebody belongs to me, I belong to somebody. All these things you need to say. Right? This is what people say. We have all been brainwashed. If you are not attached, you are not a good human being. Remember, we are talking about attachment, not about love. We had a very huge discussion on this in the second chapter beginning. This brainwashing that has been done, that you necessarily have to belong to somebody and somebody necessarily should belong to you, otherwise you are not a good human being. Krishna is saying, hey Arjuna, nobody belongs to anybody. Whatever you consider as your relationships, whatever you consider as mine, or I belong to somebody, or somebody belongs to me, these are relationships only between two temporary Vyakta Shariram, two temporary manifest bodies. Which means what? All relationships are only between Thula Sharirams, only. Between two physical bodies only. One of them goes away, there is no more relationship. And therefore it is foolish to cry for somebody who has gone. He never really belonged to you anyway. Right? This is the text of this verse. It's a very important verse. So, if any questions are there, we can take it at this stage.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, so when we say at the time of death, the body goes from Vyakta to Avyakta form. So, but what happens in case of a Jnani? Like when a Jnani dies, the person is like the Karna Shariram also
The Jnani dies, the body is over. In fact, when the Jnani dies, there's nothing left. Only Ishvara is left.
Yeah, so he doesn't exist in the potential form also after that,
No,
right?
no. He exists as Ishvara.
Okay.
There's no difference between him and Ishvara, so he exists as Ishvara. That is what is meant by merger. Okay, any questions, please? All right. So then let us look at 29th verse. We will chant. Ascharyavat pasyati kaschidенam.
आश्चर्यवत् पश्यति कश्चिदेनम्
Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyah.
आश्चर्यवदति तथैव चान्यः
Ascharyavat chainamanya shrunoti.
आश्चर्यवन्यमन्यः शृणोति
श्रुत्वाप्येनं वेद न चैव कश्चित्.
श्रुत्वाप्येनं वेद न चैव कश्चित्.
Okay. So again we look at the grammar. Ascharyavat pasyati kaschit enam. Ascharyavat vadati tatha eva cha anyah. Ascharyavat cha enam anyah shrunoti. Shrutva api enam veda na cha eva kaschit. So, look at the sentences. Kaschit pasyati. Some people look upon or see enam. So, enam here is Atma. Okay, because the whole discussion is about Atma. So, kaschit enam pasyati. Some people see the Atma. Ashravat, looking upon it as a wonder. So, kaschit pasyati enam atmanam ashravat. Some people look upon the Atma as a very big wonder. Right? Tatha evacha anyaha. Somebody else vadati enam atmanam ashravat. Some other people who talk about the Atma talk about it as a wonder, ashravat. Then anyaha enam ashcharyavat shrunoti. Other people, anyaha enam atmanam, you have to supply this atmanam shrunoti ashcharyavat. Hear about it as a wonder. And the crux is the fourth line. Kaschit api, there are other people. Api shrutva enam. Even some people, even after hearing about Atman, having done Shravanam, na Veda eva. They don't understand it at all. Okay, so he's saying, hey Arjuna, some people look upon Atma as a wonder. Other people speak about Atma as a wonder. A third person hears about it as a wonder. And there are other people who have listened to it for years together, have done Shravanam for years together, and they still do not understand. So Krishna is saying, Arjuna, how are you able to understand this Atma? Even if you are not able to, it will not be surprising. Because the topic is very, very subtle. And it requires a lot of preparation of mind for understanding the Atma. Therefore, he says, Atma is a great wonder. Atma Jnanam is an even greater wonder. So the Atma teaching itself is very, very wonderful. And in the old days, it was kept a secret. But actually speaking, you don't need to keep this teaching a secret. Because even if you stand in the street and tell everybody about it, nobody will understand. 1 in 100 person will understand, even if he's interested. So why should you not tell it? Therefore, teach it. It's an open secret. And why is this knowledge a very subtle and secret one. Krishna says, in talking about the Atma, there is a tendency in all of us, when we want to understand something, we try to think of it as an object. Right? Think carefully. Whenever you want to understand something, what do? You try to think about it as an object, which means it should be available to one of your sense organs, indriyas, or to the mind. And if that is not there, then how can you conceive of it even? Right? So when Krishna says Atma Nityam, Atma Sarvagataha, so Atma is eternal, Atma is all-pervading. What will you do immediately? You will try to imagine, how does this look? Where is it possible? Is it space? What will it look like? An eternal thing, what will it look like? So what you are trying to do is what the brain, what your intellect is trained for. To understand anything, what do? We try to convert that idea into a concept, right? You form a concept. And then the problem with forming concept is you have a vague idea. And therefore, I have this concept that Atma is, it's an object. I've not really seen it, but it's an object. Object meaning I am the seer and Atma is something which is seen. So that is the concept. And then I will sit in meditation and hope that one day that mysterious Atma will give me darshan. What happens? The more they meditate, nothing comes. And then frustration comes. And then you say Shastram is useless. There is no Atma at all. Where is the problem? The problem is because we should remember that Atma is not an object. It is the very subject, which is you. You cannot look for yourself. And therefore, looking for Atma is a very basic mistake. It's called the object orientation. Right? And in Sanskrit, it is called Paroksha Buddhi. Looking for something as an object. So if you imagine some mysterious Atman and look for that mysterious thing to come to you in your meditation, in deep samadhi, you will see Atman. And there are more and more of spiritual people who say that in my samadhi I met up with Atman, or saw Atman, experienced Atman. You cannot experience, because whatever you experience cannot be you. You are the experiencer. You are Atma itself. How can you experience yourself? The experiencer can never experience himself. So whatever you experience is not you. And if you experience something in your dream or in your meditation, that is definitely not Atma. This is the intellectual understanding which you must have. And then some people use neti technique. I negate everything. And when I negate everything, first I negate the world, then I negate my body, then I negate my sukshma shariram, then I negate my karana shariram. What is left? Nothing is left. And therefore I will consider that this nothingness, shunyam, is Atman. And therefore, the teacher of Vedanta has to balance everything. He is on a balancing rope actually. Got a very tough job. While negating everything, he has to tell the student that everything has to be negated. And yet, I am not talking about nothingness. I am not talking about shunyam. And therefore, you have to understand and accept. Both are necessary. Until that happens, until the understanding and the acceptance happens, the teacher and the student have to work jointly on this concept of Atma. So this 29th verse and this next verse, 30th verse, is the conclusion of the Atma Jnanam topic, which began in verse number 11. Now, why did Krishna introduce this topic? In this context, he introduced this topic to help Arjuna overcome the problem of shoka, this problem of grief, of sorrow. But according to Vedanta, Atmagyanam alone can solve the problem of sorrow for good. And that is why permanent solution to sorrow is only Atmagyanam. Any other method can only temporarily remove the sorrow or remove it to a limited extent. But the complete elimination of sorrow requires you to understand Atmagyanam and establish yourself as Atma. And therefore, Krishna introduced this topic in the very beginning, hoping that Arjuna would understand. So, Krishna has presented Atmagyanam as what? Shoka Nivritti Shastra, something which can remove your sorrow. And having done that, in this 29th verse, Krishna is glorifying this Atmagyanam. Atmagyanam Mahima he is talking about. So what is the glory of this knowledge? So Krishna says you can talk about many glories, but the greatest wonder in the universe is that this knowledge is freely available and yet it is almost never understood. So it is the greatest secret. So self-knowledge therefore is the greatest Ashcharyam, to use his words. And why is this teaching Ashcharyam or a wonder? Because every human being is ultimately looking only for certain fundamental goals in his life. So we all have different goals, superficially, right? I might want to become a teacher. One of you may want to become a badminton champion. One of you may want to earn lots of money. One of you may want to become a very well-known dancer. Everybody's goals seem to be different. Success, the definition of success seems to be different. Success in business, success in politics. But Krishna is saying fundamentally, the goal is always the same. It is only superficially that the goals look different. Fundamentally, there is no difference at all. What is the fundamental goal? I look for a sense of fulfillment in my life. And to achieve this fulfillment, I use different methods. The methods are not the goal. What is achieved by the method is the goal. And what is this basic goal? It's a discovery of security. Because all my life, I have been constantly insecure. The problem with the human being is that he doesn't have control over everything in his life. And therefore, there's a constant sense of insecurity. So if I don't have any money, well, that is one insecurity. If I have lots of money, that is another insecurity, another type of insecurity. So insecurity varies. Types of insecurity vary. The source of the insecurity may vary, but it is constantly there. And therefore, the discovery of this security, the removal of this insecurity is my actual aim. And when this insecurity goes, what happens? Happiness comes. And therefore, discovery of happiness is my final goal. So fulfillment, security, and happiness. Different names, but ultimately the same goal. All these goals are represented by one single word in Shastra, Atman or Brahman. So in fact, Atman or Brahman is another word for permanent security, permanent happiness. So if you ask a friend of yours, who is not in the spiritual line, supposing you ask him, are you seeking Atman? He will say, no, Atman, I don't have time for all that. But you ask him, are you seeking happiness in life? He will say, of course. The understanding is that happiness, that fulfillment, that security, what you call, I call Atma. And therefore security is Atma, peace of mind is Atma, fulfillment is Atma. And therefore Krishna says all people are ultimately seeking Atma alone. Seeking Atma is seeking moksha. And what is the greatest wonder of that seeking? The goal that is Atma, which you are seeking, that ultimate goal which you are seeking, what is that goal? It happens to be your very nature. You are looking for something which is already your nature. What can be more foolish than that? So that which you are seeking, the goal, that is the seeker itself. What you call peace, security, fulfillment is your own intrinsic self. And in Sanskrit, the word Atma means yourself. And therefore, the greatest wonder here is that everyone is seeking himself or herself, but does not know that he is seeking or himself. So Krishna says, Ascharyavat. So what does he do? He studies sciences, he goes to business, various accomplishment, he becomes a batsman, he becomes a tennis player, varieties of this and that. All in the sake of searching happiness, not knowing that that happiness which he seeks is ultimately within yourself. And then he comes to a teacher of Vedanta who points out that, hey, what you are seeking is basically you only. Therefore, that discovery becomes the greatest Ascharyam for him, greatest wonder for him. And the sad thing is that for this peace and security which is available in me, I will seek the entire world. I will roam the entire world. I will be restless from day one. I will not see the one place, the greatest hiding place for that security, which is inside me. And therefore Shankara laments, he cries, Shankaracharya cries in Bhajagovindam. Balastavat krida saktaha, tarunastavat taruni saktaha, vriddhastavat chinta saktaha. He says, Balastavat krida saktaha. When I was a child, that happiness I tried to get from krida, from play. Tarunastavat taruni saktaha. When I became an adult, I tried to get that happiness from my wife or husband. Later on, vriddhastavat chinta saktaha. When I got older, I was not getting the happiness from anywhere, and therefore I got only worries. Chinta saktaha. The only place I didn't look, so I looked everywhere. In my toys I looked, at my spouse I looked, at my children I looked, which means I have looked at the entire universe. But the one place I didn't look is, I didn't look at myself. And therefore, this Atma is the greatest secret, because you will never look for it in the one place where it is there. Ultimately, when the Acharya tells you that you are what you are seeking, Ascharyavat, comes as a big shock that all these years I have wasted, but always I alone. And even when the Upanishads introduced Atman or Brahman, our natural tendency to conceptualize things, to look upon things as an object, they make me think of Atman or Brahman as another object which is a source of joy. And then again the teacher tells you, don't ever look for the Atman. Don't ever look for Brahman, because you will never stumble across it. Brahman is not something which will stumble across in your wanderings. You are the Atman or Brahman. You cannot stumble across yourself. You have to learn that you are yourself. And therefore the point being made is that Brahman or Atman is not a new substance which is revealed by Vedanta. It is a new status about myself. Right? This is the story conveyed by Karan and Kunti. Karan was always a Pandava, but he thought he was Sutputra. And he continued to think he was Sutputra until one fine day, Kunti told him in the battlefield that you are my son, you are a Pandava. Did Kunti reveal a new substance, a new Karna? No. Did Karan discover something, a new Karna? No. The same Karan was there, but he discovered that his status has changed. He was no longer Sutputra, he was Kunti Putra. So that discovery of a new status for yourself That is what Shastra does. Shastra doesn't reveal to you any new Brahman. And therefore, you don't have to go around looking for Brahman. Shastra simply tells you that Jivatma which you think you are, that you are not. You are actually Paramatma. You are ever secure. You are ever happy. You are ever fulfilled. That is why we say the sixth Pandava, sixth Kaunteya. That story is about this only. So what he is saying is, the sixth one you are looking for is yourself only. So nothing new has happened. You just know a new status about an already known you. In fact, it is not even a new status. It is an old status, always existing status. Only thing, I did not see it. Shastram cleans up your vision, gives you spectacles, and from which you come to know that I am Brahman. There is no physical change. There is no mystic experience. There is no floating. There is no halo above your head. It is very simple and silent recognition of a reality that yes, Aham Brahma Asmi. Aham Brahma Asmi, Mahavakyam is very simple. It is an understanding without any doubts about myself. What I thought till today, I was small, I was finite, I was insecure. But now I know that I am secure, I am fullness itself, I am Paramatma itself. This dropping of that misconception, this is what is being talked about in Shastra. So a notion about myself has to be dropped. Self-knowledge is the greatest wonder, because what I am seeking, I am. And therefore Krishna says, Kaschit enam ascharyavat pashyati. So this particular sloka talks about three types of people. One is the student who has understood Shastra, as taught by his teacher. One is the teacher, and the third one is the student, but who has not understood. So one student, first student, he sees this new status about himself, Aham Brahma Asmi, as a great wonder. Because he says it is so simple. And all these years, how did I miss this fact? All the searching and sadhana that he has done has only been a waste of time, a wild goose chase. The very fact that Brahman is nowhere in your perception should have made you think, is my direction of searching the right thing? No. And it didn't make us think that. What happened? I continued in my old direction, led by all sort of people. But because if the direction was right, then sooner or later, I should have discovered Brahman. At least after 40 years of searching, I should have discovered, right? Or at least after 60 years of, when I'm 95 years old, I should have discovered. But the very fact that I have never discovered is a very clear indication that I was searching in the wrong direction. And that is the glory of Maya. Maya will mislead you. You will go on searching, but you will never find. Unless you have punyam, and by some punyam, fructification of some punyam, you come to Vedanta, you discover a teacher. Then alone you discover that you are that Atma which you are searching for. So it is the greatest wonder. So I am searching here, I am searching there, I am searching everywhere. But when I discover that all the searching is unnecessary, Kaschit enam ascharyavat pashyati. I discovered it is a great wonder to me. Ascharyam. How did I miss all this? It was so simple, literally right in front of my nose. And then he says, Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanya. So another person is talking about it. He is a teacher. He of course has understood that he is Atma. He is a great wonder. Why? Because he is talking about the Atma. And that is a wonder because Atma cannot be described in words. And yet he is teaching. How? Using words. Therefore, he is a great wonder because he has been trained to talk about that which you cannot describe using words which cannot be used. And yet he is using So that teacher is a great wonder. Then Ascharyavat Shrunoti. The one who listens to all this, he is also a great wonder. Because this third person, he has listened, but he has not understood. So listening to the teaching is a wonder. Understanding the teaching is a wonder. Teaching itself is a wonder. In the field of knowledge, everything is a wonder. Teacher is a wonder. Shishya who has understood that is Brahman is a wonder. And among all these people who wonder, the greatest wonder is what? After listening to the teaching for 60 years, some people still don't understand. That is the greatest wonder. The non-knower of Atma is the biggest wonder. Shrutva piyanam. Even after Shrutva api enam, listening for many, many, many years, some people, kaschit naiva veda, never understand. What is the obstacle? We talked about in the beginning. The tendency to create a concept. If you are looking for Atma as an object, at Atma you will never find, whether you look for 100 years or 100 lifetimes. You can look outside, you can look inside, you will never find. Atma is neither outside, Atma is not inside. Atma is you. There is no phrase connecting Atma and myself. And to understand this point, that I cannot ever look for Atma. I can only try to understand that I am that Atma. It takes a long time to get used to this concept. Because students who have worked for several years, they still talk about Atma as if it is a different thing. You will find that in the questions also. Some senior students ask, how do I I have this Atma. The person who says this Atma or this Brahman or that Atma or that Brahman, what is he doing? He is objectifying that Atman. He is converted that Atman into an object. If you have converted the Atman to object, it is different from you. And therefore you will never understand. But once you have seen the clue, how to understand, it is the easiest thing and therefore Ascharyavat. That is the greatest wonder. Okay. Any questions?
Raviji, I have a question.
Yes, please.
This is regarding the topic of meditation, where you mentioned rightly that you sit in meditation and you're supposed to see a light or a point of light.
Yeah.
You can't experience yourself. Then what exactly is the purpose of meditation?
Meditation has only one purpose. It is to enable you to focus your mind when you want an object of your choice. Anybody who thinks that he is going to see Atma in meditation, get self-realized during meditation, will never happen.
No, so it is negating actually, that means meditation is actually something that is not required then.
It is required. It is required for you to focus. Because to focus on the teaching, it takes a long time. Because it's such an abstract concept that it's very easy for the mind to wander. And therefore it is essential that I learn to focus. That focusing also has one more great advantage. It keeps your mind very concentrated, which is what we call Chitta Shuddhi. Chitta Shuddhi means because of the focus of the mind, because of the fact that in meditation you are trying to focus on one particular thought or one particular, mantra, other thoughts do not enter your mind. You get what I'm saying? When stray thoughts enter your mind, that is the problem, because your mind goes away. But this ensures that no thought other than what you are focusing on enters your mind, which is why we keep saying Japamala you do. Twice a day, thrice a day. Whenever you are free, do Japamala. And try to focus for that few minutes on the Japa. You are building your attempt at concentration. So you have to be very clear. Any Japa, any meditation, even Samadhi itself is only concentrated thought process. Once you have mastered that, then for you, the rest of it is easy. Without mastering that concentration, nothing will happen. Never think of meditation as a means of knowledge. It is not there.
Raviji?
Yes, John.
So we do meditation and we attain the samadhi state after a lot of practice. And so how is this transition from this state of samadhi to the realization that aham brahmasmi?
There is no transition stage over there. That transition comes only through knowledge. Shravanam, Maranam is the only way of achieving the knowledge. Meditation is, samadhi itself is only, it's great as a purifier of your mind, but otherwise there is no value for moksha. So that is the misconceptions of the yoga school of thought, which says kaivalyam through samadhi. That misconception you must drop, because the idea is very simple, right? What is bondage? When I say I am not liberated, I don't have moksha, what does it mean? It means I don't know I'm Atman. And what is the means of knowing your Atman? Only knowledge. There is no, something special in samadhi which gives you that knowledge. You have to listen to a teacher.
So, Acharya, okay, continue.
Sorry, one more question related to the last answer. Is okay?
Yeah.
So, in the TTC training, we were taught that Swami Shivananda, one of his greatest teachings was the yoga of synthesis, and I remember that in the classes they used to tell us that the yoga has like 4 paths. 4 parts of yoga: bhakti yoga, karma, raja, and jnana. And they used to say that we can achieve moksha through any of these paths.
No.
That they lead to the
Swami
same.
Shivananda never said that. Okay,
No?
Swami Shivananda said very clearly, if you read his works, jnanam is the only way.
Okay.
The yoga of synthesis means that you have to have the other 3 as supporting disciplines.
Okay.
So Swami Shivananda is extremely clear. Jnana teva kaivalyam. Only through knowledge you get moksha. Is extremely clear on all his readings. That is why Shankaracharya is worshipped in the ashram. Shankaracharya is Jnana Guru. Shankaracharya didn't teach you meditation or Kundalini yoga, right? He taught you only Shastram. That is why Shankaracharya is worshipped, because Shankaracharya is worshipped by Swami Shivananda and Swami Vishnu. Because he is the Jnana Guru. Everything else is supportive. Without knowledge, there is no moksha. Without the supporting things, there is no knowledge. That is what is meant by yoga of synthesis. So you wash your hands before you go for dinner, right? By washing your hands, your stomach doesn't get full. You have to actually eat. But for eating, you have to wash your hands.
Thank you so much.
Om sir.
Yes, Sundar.
Even Patanjali Maharishi also says knowledge is the only way.
Yes, knowledge is the only way.
Meditation, samadhi, they are means.
They are means.
They are the end. So the knowledge that Purusha is different from Prakriti, that will lead to Kaivalya. So ultimately everything is knowledge only.
Yes, but there is a difference in the Yoga Sutras in the sense that Yoga Sutra Kaivalyam is the delinking of the Purusha from Prakriti. Both are independent entities. Their definition is different.
Different, yes.
But they also talk about knowledge. Our definition is that there is no Prakriti apart from Purusha.
Yes.
So there is a difference. But yes, that knowledge is the way, is the only way.
Yes. I would like to share a 4-line story, which is, I think, related to this, our today's sloka. So there was a monk and a person met him. He asked Guruji Swamiji, before attaining self-realization, what were you doing? He said, I was chopping wood and fetching water for the ashram.
Yeah.
After realization, what you are doing? He said, chopping wood and fetching water.
Absolutely. Nothing changes in your life. You don't suddenly start to float or, get halo over your head. So that's all. The fact is, it's only a realization of what you are. What it does is that it frees you from any fear. You live your life in peace. That living your life in complete peace and harmony, not being disturbed by anybody or any circumstance in your life, that is what is called Jivan Mukti.
Absolutely, sir.
It's a very practical definition, which is different from definitions given by other people who suddenly become wise and then you know everything in the world. You can build an airplane, you can build a rocket, all knowledge comes. That is all not subscribed to by Vedanta.
Raviji, please repeat the definition, Mukti.
Beg your pardon?
Please repeat the definition of Mukti.
Jivan Mukti, I should say. There are two types of Muktis, Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti. So Jivan Mukti is complete freedom from any insecurity. You live your life happily doing whatever you are, in whatever circumstances you are. You no longer make an effort for trying to be happy because you're happy by yourself. And that's a very important thing because you do things out of happiness, while all of us do things for our happiness. If you think any action that you do is meant to make you happy ultimately, right? But the Jnani doesn't do that. He is already happy. He doesn't need an external trigger for his happiness. So whatever he does is an expression of his happiness. Whatever we do, whatever Ajnani does, is for happiness. So that is the difference. And therefore, there is complete freedom from insecurity. He will live his life. Here again, I must say one thing, that when you say Jnani, we are using it at the plane of the relative level, okay? Because there is, once you have said Jnani, there is no individual anymore. And therefore, to use saying that he is a Jnani, that itself statement is wrong because there is no he in a Jnani. Jnani is Sarvam, everything.
Om Acharya.
Yes.
This samadhis, some places you see, like, they build a place, like, the person has been in a state of samadhi and they leave the body in a deep state, meditative state. So that means like they haven't realized their true nature and just left the body. How is this? Because there are a lot of worships happen at that particular place, like,
so you have to de-link the two words, right? Samadhi and Jnana. A Jnani can be in Samadhi, right? There is no restriction for a Jnani to go into Samadhi. In fact, Jnani will find it easier to go to Samadhi because he's got focused mind. But a person who has gone to Samadhi need not be a Jnani. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Acharya.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Jnanam and Samadhi are not exclusive, but Samadhi is not leading to Jnana. Samadhi is not the same as Jnana. That's why I said a person who is in Samadhi need not be a Jnani, in which case he will be reborn. A person who is a Jnani, he may be not a Jnani, may be in Samadhi, may not be in Samadhi. He may have never gone into Samadhi in his life. He will be not reborn.
Thank you so much, Raviji. Please,
thank you, Acharya.
Sorry,
Raviji, please elaborate on this, that the idea in Yoga Sutra is Purush and Prakriti is different and our idea is it's this extension or reflection of the same.
In Yoga Sutra, Patanjali, Yoga Sutra has two interpretations. In fact, I would like to believe that the original Yoga Sutra was, basically it is not dualistic, but in today's, even the best of commentaries, there is a commentary by one gentleman called Vyasacharya, not the Vyasacharya who wrote the Mahabharata, but a more recent Vyasacharya. There's a commentary by him on the Yoga Sutras. That commentary is dualistic in nature. So it takes Prakriti and everything today derives from that. Prakriti and Purusha are different. There are many Purushas in Yoga Sutra. There are as many Purushas as there are Jivas. And there are Prakriti also there. Because the Purusha has got entangled with Prakriti, therefore he is not free. And through the practice of the Ashtanga, practice is aimed at disentangling the Purusha from the Prakriti. The moment the Purusha is disentangled from the Prakriti, he is free of Prakriti. Being free of Prakriti is what is called Kaivalyam, Moksha in Yoga Sutras. That is the angle of the Yoga Sutras. They don't say that either of them goes away. Prakriti remains, Purusha remains. Purusha affected by kleshas. Klesha has all the problems in life because it is mixed up with Prakriti. And if you have to be free of Prakriti, then you have to disentangle yourself from Prakriti. And once you are disentangled yourself from Prakriti, then you are Purusha who is got Kaivalyam. So that is the Yoga Sutra viewpoint.
And our view, Shastra's viewpoint is it's all extension of the same consciousness, Brahman.
So don't use words like extension. We say Mithya. We say that it is a dependent entity. All Prakriti is dependent upon Brahman. There is no existence of Prakriti without Brahman. And therefore, where is the question of getting free of it? You just have to understand that Nama Rupa is not you. The essence is you. So to understand the bangle is not you, the gold is you. Nothing changes. The bangle remains, but you just look upon the bangle as a gold. That is moksha. So for us, one is mithya, one is satyam. For them, both are satyam. Prakriti and Purusha are both satyam. For Advaitins, there is only one satyam. That is why it's called Advaita.
So Raviji, just a small question.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for Sri Krishna introducing this deep knowledge, abstract subject early in the Bhagavad Gita in the 2nd chapter?
We have to ask Lord Krishna that why he did that.
Yes, because this is the ultimate or the essence of the Advaita and understanding of the Atma.
So the only thing is that in a text, we have, in fact, anybody who's been a teacher will know that first you give a summary of what you're going to say. Like I'll tell you, when I was when I was doing when I was school and I went for my first debate contest, or elocution contest, they used to call it. My teacher was an outstanding teacher. He told me, you have to do 3 things. So first, you tell them what you are going to tell them. First, you have to tell them what you are going to tell them. Then, second stage is you tell them what you have to tell. And third stage is you tell them what you have told them. So, very good advice. Opening summary, expansion, closing summary. So the second chapter is opening summary. Therefore, in the opening summary, he covers everything. Jnanam and karma both. Last chapter is closing summary, 18th chapter. There also he covers Jnanam and karma both. In the middle, in the 15 chapters, he expands.
Thank you.
Yes, Sarah, you were saying something.
Raviji, what I was asking was that when one becomes a true Jnani, which means not just listening to the teachings, but also assimilating it, is it that after that it leads to freedom from birth and death? Is that what we're saying?
Yes. The birth and death is meant only for that jiva who has identified himself as the body. Which means what? All the body's actions, you have taken the onus onto yourself. Instead of saying the body is acting because of its prarabdha, I say I am acting. And that is the reason for kartrutvam, as we call it, doership. That is the problem. Remember, there is no harm in doing anything as long as you don't have doership. Karma is fine as long as kartrutvam is not there.
Right. Thank you, Raviji.
Raviji, I had one question.
Yeah,
so, Jivan Mukta becomes a Videha Mukta. The place where his Stula Shariram was buried, that is also called as Samadhi. That has no significance because he has become Ishvara now.
Yeah, in fact, the body has gone back to Prakriti, right? So there is no significance at all excepting for his worshippers who use that as an inspiration. So any samadhi, anything which you have, any idol worship, any statue of a guru, everything is for inspiration only. There is no guru sitting there in the original form of the guru. But yes, he is present as Ishvara. And that Ishvara is not present just in the samadhi stall. He is present everywhere. So this is the problem with Vedanta. Vedanta tends to demolish all your ideas about individuality, even of your own teacher.
Right. Because he is Ishvara, he is present everywhere, not just in that one place.
Exactly. So when Jnani becomes Videha Mukta, what happens is that his bodies go back, like his physical body goes back into Virat. His subtle body goes back into Hiranyagarbha. His Karana Shariram goes back into Antaryami. I hope you know all these terms. What is left is only Ishvara. And that Ishvara is there everywhere. That is how you logically come to the conclusion that Jnani merges. There's no merger. What is left is like breaking a bottle. Before the bottle was broken, we say there's space in the bottle. After the bottle is broken, there is no space in the bottle. But that space in the bottle did not merge with the space outside. It continued to be where it was. What happened is the container was broken.
Right. Thank you.
So,
Acharyaji,
yes, Manman.
so as Jivan Mukta, also is it that person, I mean, of course I shouldn't say that person, but that time also present everywhere?
No. Jivan Mukta is the space in the bottle. The space in the bottle remains in the bottle. Okay. But with the understanding that it is not different from the space outside the bottle.
So that person understands, I mean, Jiva who has become Jnani, but like for me, so can I think, okay, suppose I think, look, you are present here at this moment.
That is what you will think. Yes, that is what you will think, because the fact that you can talk to him indicates that he is identified with the body. If he has to talk to you, he has to identify with his body, then only he can talk to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Atma cannot talk. It needs the body to interact.
Oh, Acharyaji, so does that bottle example is applicable in Purnamada and Purnamidam prayer?
No. Purnamada means all that is Ada is there. So all that is there is complete. All that is here is complete. So all Ishvara is complete. The Karanam is complete. The Karyam is complete. Karanam and Karyam are not different. That is the prayer.
Okay. Thank you.
Acharyaji, I had a question.
Yeah.
You said the Jnani becomes, he is Ishvara. So in this context, the Ishvara would be OC, right? You're talking about OC.
No, we're talking about Ishvara, Saguna Ishvara.
Oh, okay. So Antaryami.
Antaryami is Saguna Ishvara, correct.
Right. Okay.
Or you can even say, Antaryami is the right one actually, not Hiranyagarbha. But you can say, like in Shastra often talks about the fact that Jnani merges with Hiranyagarbha. That is one, interpretation. Ultimately, see, underlying all these three, Virat, Hiranyagarbha and Antaryami, what is there?
OC.
Only OC is there. So the RCs, see, why is it so difficult to understand RC and RM, Because the RC cannot exist without the RM. And yet it is the RC who recognizes that I am the OC. That is the contradictory statements which need to be reconciled. Only the RC can recognize that I am the OC. And to recognize that I am the OC, he needs to have the RM so that he can be the RC. OC can never say I'm OC. OC has no way of saying anything or doing anything. All actions are done on even the thinking, the understanding is all done by the RC, for which he needs the RM. Both because the RM is Mithya, RC is also Mithya. Therefore, it is the Mithya entity which is saying that I am Satyam.
Thank you.
Okay, so with this we'll end. Thank you for your patience. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, sir.
Om Tat Sat. Thank you for patience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.